Thanks for tuning in to Jin and Tantra. Please like, subscribe, and share. In the second part of our interview with Professor Robert Thurman, we ask him about enlightenment. What is it? How can it be described? His response covers a wide range of ideas and philosophies, but he describes enlightenment as an evolutionary goal, the highest potential for the human platform, as he describes it, a culmination of all the cultures who believe in it. Ultimately, amongst other things, it's liberation with happiness as a freedom from suffering. He then goes into a discussion on the three bodies of a Buddha: reality, enjoyment, and emanation, and what that means theoretically and practically from his perspective. Although this view is shared by many in the tradition, Professor Thurman states that it is just a theory, a means to express the inexpressible, and that the only sure thing is freedom. Professor Thurman concludes by saying that miracles are always possible, and reality is totally comprehensible. Bob Thurman, known in academic circles as Professor Robert A.F. Thurman, is a talented popularizer of the Buddhist teachings and the first Westerner Tibetan Buddhist monk, ordained by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. A charismatic speaker and author of many books on Tibetan Buddhism, art, politics, and culture, Bob was named by the New York Times as a leading American expert on Tibetan Buddhism and was awarded the prestigious Padma Shri Award in 2020 for his help in recovering India's ancient Buddhist heritage. Time magazine chose him as one of the most 25 influential Americans in 1997, describing him as a larger-than-life scholar activist destined to convey the Dharma, the precious teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, from Asia to America. Professor Thurman served as a J. Tsongkhapa Professor of the Indo-Tibetan Buddhist Studies in the Department of Religion at Columbia for over 30 years, until 2020. A very popular professor, students always felt his classes were life-changing. Bob is a founder and active president of Tibet House US, a nonprofit organization dedicated to the preservation and promotion of Tibetan culture, and of the American Institute of Buddhist Studies, a nonprofit affiliated with the Center for Buddhist Studies at Columbia University and dedicated to the publication and translations of important artistic and scientific Tibetan treatises. His own teachings and searching for enlightenment began when he was a university student at Harvard. After an accident which he lost the use of an eye, Bob left school on a spiritual quest throughout Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. He found his way to India, where he first saw His Holiness the Dalai Lama in 1962. After learning Tibetan and studying Buddhism, Bob became a Tibetan Buddhist monk and the first Westerner to be ordained by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Some years later, however, he offered up his robes when he realized he could be more effective in the American equivalent of a monastery, the university, returning to Harvard to finish his PhD. As a part of his long-term commitment to the Tibetan cause, at the request of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Bob co-founded the Tibet House US with Tenzing Tetong, Richard Gere, and Philip Glass, a non-profit organization based in New York City and dedicated to the preservation and renaissance of the Tibetan culture. Inspired by his long-time good friend the Dalai Lama, Bob takes us along with him into an expanded vision of the world through the prisma of Tibetan Buddhism. He shares with us the sense of refuge in the Dharma, which unfailingly helps us clear away the shrouds of fear and confusion, sustains us with the cheerfulness of an enriched present, and opens the door to a path of realistic hope for a peaceful, kind, and wise future. We are very grateful to have Robert Thurman join us. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Jin and Tantra, spirituality with a twist. The podcast that takes Tantrism, Buddhism, Taoism, Sufism, Kabbalism, Shamanism, Chinese medicinism, and all of the other isms we've been influenced by, and blends them into a tall, crisp, cool cocktail your spirit has been longing for.
I want you to get together.
Now, isn't that refreshing?
I want you to get together.
Okay, now what do you want to know on Tantra?
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing your life. And I guess this is the Tantra part. So, we've had different people talking about different aspects of this. We had Professor Newland on, and he sort of is talking about, emptiness was one of the main things he talked about. We've had different people talking about different things. But for you, we thought it would be really interesting for you to talk about, first of all, what is enlightenment as a starting thing? I remember when back in the day, there was this magazine called What is Enlightenment? And you would read it and you think, well, maybe someone will say this.
He finally interviewed me, but he was annoyed with me not accepting some of his things. So then he made a cartoon. Then he made a cartoon, but that had out of it. But what that had was a wonderful side effect that my kids loved it.
So he was giving you,
and they never wanted to really hear anything much from me and that and themselves.
So he was giving you a hard time, apparently.
The comic that he made, but he was this kind of bullshit guru who was into putting people down and triggering their authoritarian dependency on a boss who scolds them, and then pretending it's all for the good of their getting rid of their ego. And that's we're against that kind of cult behavior. We don't like that. And it blew up in the face of the so-called cult leader eventually, because people eventually get pissed off. As devoted and as subjugated as they get at first, then they get that same angry and hateful later. It's really stupid.
So I think what I was thinking about in doing this was, I think when some people hear that word, and I really would be, love for you to kind of share this. You say this thing, enlightenment is not meant to be an object of religious faith. It is an evolutionary goal. And I think that's just a great way to describe that. So could you kind of talk about enlightenment is not, certainly when I read Tsongkhapa, when you read something like that, he's not really talking about some epiphanous moment or some sudden insight. He's really talking about a state of being. You become something, right?
Don't sell short the epiphanous moments. There's lots of great epiphanous moments. And it's almost as good as a really good acid trip.
Well, that's true.
And those which can open the door to some epiphanous moments too. And let's face it, the people who pretend they didn't get started that way are pulling your leg, because they mostly did. And but the thing is, people who then just stuck on that, then they don't go anywhere, because then they just get really. Although it's hard to be addicted to, vision quests and theogenics, as they say, or psychedelics. That you can have a hell trip anytime. So it's hard to be addicted to that. You can have heaven trips and hell trips. So, but they were very useful in our culture to help some people get less indoctrinated for a short time. So then they might think of looking elsewhere to figure out how it all fits together. And like Ram Dass, then they come back where they don't use that. They use meditation instead. But what he learned from the psychedelics, however, had a lot to do with his ability to learn something from the Neem Karoli Baba, taking Ram Dass, for example. But he didn't promote it after that, which is good. And to Tim, on the other hand, Leary, he just stayed, just takes more, and then he didn't go anywhere after that. So the thing is that enlightenment is what we are all supposed to be able to enjoy. It's basically happiness. And people are scared to say that, kind of, because they think it would be dismissed as some kind of hedonism or something, or shallow, new agey business. But that is actually a fact. Buddha's discovery, it was not suffering. Any idiot knows about suffering. Buddha's discovery was that it's possible to liberate yourself from suffering and actually have happiness. Now we're in a country where, after being beaten up somewhat, the slave-owning Thomas Jefferson managed to put in the pursuit of happiness instead of what many of his colleagues would have preferred to have. And I think in some early draft, he actually wrote the pursuit of property. I believe in the John Lockean thing, in the scheme of things, it was property that would then be the source of happiness, perhaps, for an English gentleman of that era. But he put the pursuit of happiness, which was really auspicious, and it's a good thing about some dream that we've only dreamt and never lived yet, but we're going to, and in this genocide-based country. And so that's what it is. Enlightenment is actually what the human being is happy. And the amazing thing is that the human being has a better opportunity to achieve that in a human life if you think of your life form, your biological form as something like your computer equipment, your platform. So the human platform is actually the preferable one to attain swiftly evolve toward enlightenment. The divine ones, there are various kinds of divinities in the Buddhist theory. No, there's no one creator divinity, but there are many kinds of divinities. And they are less fortunate than the humans, actually, although they're having more fun day to day on a superficial kind of fun. But then it leads to a bad result because they become careless and so on, and sort of thoughtless, and they get in denial about the impermanence of even their divine situation. And so the human is right there, very vulnerable, very sensitive, very intelligent, and can, of course, be more vicious and nasty than the most ferocious cobra or anaconda or lion or tiger or Komodo dragon, but can also be saintly and enlightened and completely self-sacrificing and wonderful. And then we can learn to develop our wisdom and our compassion. Wisdom meaning not resignation to suffering, but wisdom meaning knowledge of what is real. And the depth reality that we can discover is itself happiness. It comes from the happiness comes from reality, actually, if we're really open to it. So it's a process of opening up our paranoias and our fears of the other in the universe that we're into when we have a misunderstanding of the universe, which we do. And so I always say Buddha was the supreme scientist. And however, he wasn't interested in his supremacy. He was interested in millions of other people, other humans becoming great scientists and really understanding what is real and distinguishing it from what is unreal and enjoying it, as enjoying its reality and sharing that enjoyment with others. And that's what enlightenment is. So in a way, it's the summum bonum of all cultures and all philosophies that say there is such a thing. The nihilistic ones, to them, the summum bonum is just returning to nothing. But that's not bad, if they could deliver that. But of course, it's insane also, because you can't be nothing, because no something ever becomes nothing. There's just entropy maybe of some concentration of energy, but then it comes back together again. So energies always make other energies, you know what I mean? That's what everybody observes. Nobody has ever seen anything opposite to that. They talk about black holes, but then black holes are exerting gravitational force over 1 billion light years. So it obviously doesn't become nothing,
Yeah, in Tibet, they almost have this idea of like conservation of consciousness. Why would your consciousness go away totally if it's been there the whole time? Where would it go to? Why would it disappear? Like anything else in the universe?
I know, well, it's just, it hasn't gone anywhere, actually. That's the answer. It hasn't gone anywhere. Everything is fine if we know what it is.
Yeah.
If we really know our reality. And for example, we go around being scared of death. But actually, if we know death is the ultimate default fail-safe, death is. If some Nazi captures you and starts pulling out your fingernails and doing other horrible things to you, then the great escape is to die. They can't touch you. Oh, bye. And you leave the body. They can mess with a rotting body, but you can die. Then when you die, if you are very open-minded, if you're very able, if you're an accomplished surfer or skydiver or someone who knows how to kind of let go and then go with that flow of having let go. If someone who knows that, then death is a beautiful opportunity to sail to ever better, ever greener grasses, ever better subdivisions, ever better like living spaces, better families, better wombs, of more beautiful mothers and nicer dads and nicer cultures where you can learn how to bring out your potential and have a good time. And so death is a what do you call it? A way, like in a shipyard, you have isn't it called the ways where the ship slides into the sea? Mm-hmm. So then if we understood life and death, then we realize that death is the cool thing. Like, you can't do anything that horrible to me because I can die right in front of you.
So one of the things that I thought would be great having you on that subject matter, you have the liberation upon hearing in the between, which is kind of available.
Book of the Dead, right?
Yeah, I was like giving it a re-listen and prep for this. And one of the things I really love that you do there is you kind of talk about these three kind of bodies of enlightenment: Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. And I just really thought for our listeners, it would just be great to hear as much as you could do, thumbnail sketch wise, how you think about that and how you try to explain that to people.
Yeah, well, it's a kind of you know, the ultimate Buddhahood is inexpressible. One of the other great things about Buddha that I really like about him is he smiled when he attained enlightenment with a big grin on his face. We would call it a shit-eating grin. And he ready for everything and delighted with it all. And then he said, wow, he said, I now know everything. I really do. And but the problem is I can't explain it to you because it's inexpressible. It's beyond words. It's out of our divisions and analysis with concepts. It's past all that. But it's wonderful. I can assure you, and you can take that at for whatever it's worth to you. But you don't have to. I'm not saying that if you believe it, it's going to that much help you. In a way, if you believe there could be a positive outcome to your existence, and then strive for it, that would be good for you. But only if you strive for it. Just the belief by itself will not be that helpful. And I'm not a dogmatist. I'm not saying this and that. I'm saying that I was a stupid prince, yuppie prince, and then I was a big, crazy ascetic, self-torturer to try to balance that. And now I don't either of those things, but now I know what real is, and real is just embraced me. The real has embraced me orgasmically, and I'm so happy. And actually, you are the same kind of being. You can do this yourself as well. I can encourage you, but unfortunately, you won't do it just by believing what I say. What you have to do is you have to try and fail. You have to put into practice some practices that I will share with you, and if you do, you'll come to an understanding yourself beyond whatever I've told you. But I could help you put it that way. You might find some other help by other ways as well. So naturally, you could maybe find it in yourself. Some people do. I did it in myself. I didn't have someone really teach me the most important things. But so that's what he did. So he founded a school, and the school was for people to full-time student. They got a scholarship from all the kings of the time, and an exemption from military duty, an exemption from family duty, females as well as males. He was nervous about having the females only because he knew that the culture would have a harder time letting go their slaves, because in the patriarchal society, the women were more or less slaves. So he wanted them to be let go of. He accepted people in his school from any caste or even outcasts. He didn't care. And he inverted the hierarchy actually once they were in his community. But he said, you can learn this, you can understand this yourself. It's because it's reality. And actually, the reality of things will always overwhelm unrealistic constructs put on top of it. Because in fact, they are flimsy because someone is maintaining them against what is actually the case. And that always is weaker. It takes more energy, it's less effective. So that's what it is, and we still need that school and we still use it. It helped me a lot, and it will help me more when I finally get really enlightened, which I'm going to do. But I don't know in this life or not. But that's okay.
So when you think about
I know I'm having more lives. That I know that for sure. And,
well, you could try to do it in the Bardo, right? Isn't that the
you can even do it in the Bardo.
Do it in the Bardo, right? We're pulling for you. Yeah, do it in the Bardo, right? Come back and help us all.
Yeah, that's right.
We need you.
That's right. That's right. That's what we're all going to do. That everybody needs everybody else, and we're all doing that. And everybody on this planet. Actually, Shambhala's only 400 years away maximum, and that's officially. But I think it's closer personally. And I had my old Mongolian supported me in the argument against the scripture on that one. I actually went heretical, and I said it may already be here, in fact, And he agreed with that, which he usually didn't. He was very critical. Because Tibetans like to debate and argue a lot, as you know. You know Gaelic Rinpoche. You know Gaelic Rinpoche. So he was a great teacher too. Getting him, he was so intelligent, really.
Yeah.
It's just he just wouldn't diet. That's all. I wanted him to diet. He'd still be with us if he had dieted.
Well, he'd be there at the
I tried to
retreats.
make him diet, but I failed.
At the retreats, though, he would still be out there. Even he was ill, he'd still be sitting there, just like helping everyone. It's one of those things that's very inspiring.
Yeah. He just was a little bit.
Well, it's kind of like
never mind.
Sweet tooth,
So,
right?
So the whole thing is that's what enlightenment is, and it's not that far away. Nagarjuna, in his writings to his king friend, he said, after giving him lots of different advice, he was like the counselor, he was like the amanuensis of a very important South Indian king who did a lot of wonderful social innovations under Nagarjuna's advice. So he wasn't just an armchair philosopher, Nagarjuna, but he was a yogi philosopher. But he said to the king, he said, well, listen, don't think enlightenment and nirvana is that far away. It is just as close as you get about understanding it. And you have to work at it, and don't waste your time on useless things and on things that were not going to give you as great an impact and as great a result. Well, now, so now then, however, that state then it's an inexpressible state, of course, but the Buddhists love to express inexpressible states, one of their favorite things. But they always do it with the caveat that these are just heuristic schemas that direct, they're like vectors for the mind to sort of try to expand to where it can think of something cognitively dissonant and incomprehensible and sort of open to experience that, knowing that it won't fit with some formula type of idea. But the formula will bring them right up face to face with it, but it will not encompass it, put it that way. So this is called the three-body theory. So two-body, then it morphs into three bodies. And that is the reality body. The Dharmakaya really, really should be translated as reality body. Because what happens when you become a Buddha is you become everything. You feel you are everything. And you don't do it in some way where everything is just vast space or something like that. There's what I call a cheap oneness that some yogis can achieve, and Buddhist yogis do too on the way. And that is where they melt into space, kind of. And space seems infinite to them. And they feel that's what's there. They feel that they see through the walls and the floor and the ceiling and the planets and the stars, and everything is a vast luminous space. And then that's a danger if you think then that's nirvana apart from all the previous people, your body, the relative world. If you think that's it, then you can be stuck in that space. You become a deity of a formless realm, which you don't stay there forever either. But so it's considered to be a danger if you haven't got the automatic sense of just drilling through wherever you are and seeing through the seeing through. So the disappearance disappears, in other words. And
it's
when
kind of like that.
Disappears, everything is here. But you're still one with it all. And that's harder. That's what I call the expensive one. Because then everybody's still here. Your former friends and everybody, your body, and the whole thing is still there. And then because you have found a space in your mind that is sort of infinite, you feel it's simultaneously infinite. It's very not complicated. Right now, you, me, and everyone, Baker, you and me, and I forgot the name.
Daniel.
Anyway, the three of us are all infinite because we can't exclude infinity from our supposed boundary and our finitude, or it wouldn't be infinite. So we're simultaneously finite and infinite, actually. There's no boundary within our infinite side, but we don't encompass our infinite side. It's just infinite is the kind of negation. It's the negation of the of the definitiveness, the concreteness of our sense of boundary, basically infinite, non-finite, that is. So that negation, however, is not manifest to us. What is manifest to us is, this is me inside my hand here, and that's a table outside my hand that I'm pounding on, right? But somehow, if I could develop a consciousness that was completely having the reach of infinity while also being able to manipulate my finite interrelatedness with other finite things. If those two were simultaneous in my awareness, it's like looking in a mirror, and after having tried to reach that person in the mirror who looks like you realize that it's just your reflection. So then you see yourself and you see a reflection in a mirror. You don't see a window and yourself, someone like you beyond in the window, right? Mm-hmm. Although to not see that way, something is making you correct the way you see. You don't have to think, oh, that's a mirror. That's not another Bob Thurman whose left, right is reversed. I don't have to think. I know that when I see it. So somehow that is a kind of simulation. Mm-hmm. It's inexplicable because it's sort of behind. There's an inference that I once bumped into a mirror trying to go through it, and now I know that inference, so I don't have to renew that knowledge. And do I really hold that knowledge at the same time as I hold seeing the reflection? If you follow me, do I see the mirror surface at the same time as the reflection? So enlightenment is where you see both simultaneously with equal force, and even almost the infinitive part is a stronger force than the relational part, sort of. But you can't express what that is because it's encompassing the two things. But a good analogy is the mirror thing. So the body of reality is the mirror surface, the infinite nature of everything. And then the form body, or the body of the material body that you have, is your experience of that. And the experience of, but it's the same as the infinite. So it's simultaneously infinite. And so therefore you feel you are all the other people. Like, for example, if you were talking to me, but you thought you were me at the same time as talking to me, mm-hmm. Or I'd say vice versa. Now, if I was like that, that would make me the best ultimate teacher, because I would know what the other person is confused, where their problem was, what they were thinking. So I would intersect exactly with what they needed to step toward, to open up their thinking, to think more deeply, or whatever it is that they needed, right? Mm-hmm. Just like as an acupuncturist, if you somehow can sort of feel the kink in someone's shoulder, I wish I had your services, I have a frozen shoulder sometimes, you would know just which nerve to hit, to put your little very slender needle into, to stimulate flow of chi there. You would know exactly if you were on both sides of, you were like a CAT scan. Mm-hmm. You were on both sides of the skin, you could say. So when you become a Buddha, you have the powerful release of feeling your infinity, which is your reality body, enables you to engage in the minutiae of the beings with which you are 100% empathetic. And those that are, and of course, it's easy to be empathetic with other Buddhas, and there are innumerable numbers of those, because they're just like you, they're feeling they're you, and now they're happy to feel you as feeling better, and like they do. But then you also feel all the ones who feel terrible and are freaked out, even ones in a hellish situation, in subhuman life form, etc. And yet you completely feel how they feel, their suffering, but your larger bliss enables you to feel that without getting sucked into only that's the only thing. So therefore you're like the doctor who doesn't flinch when you cut in surgery, when you make a cut in somebody, even though the best doctor would be empathetic of how they're cutting, so they'd be very careful not to damage this nerve and that thing, They'd be really super on the beam not to do that, right? So that's called so then that's the material body, and then the material body subdivides into what's called the bliss body, or beatific body, or enjoyment body, and what is called the emanation body. And the enjoyment body is easier to explain because it's like you as a continuum of your previous boundaried, misknowledge, imprisoned individuality are now enjoying being one with all Buddhas and all beings, and with infinity and eternity, and you're totally released and completely, solidly, realistically happy, blissful, and with the highest degree of inconceivable high bliss. But then, in order to manifest and to take care of anybody you empathize with, which is everybody who is not a Buddha themselves, you want to do just whatever they need. You want to be their acupuncturist, you want to be their massage therapist, you want to be their doctor, you want to be their servant, you want to be their whatever they need, their puppy dog, if that's what they need. And to do that, that's called the body of emanation. It's like you become, because you're infinite, you manifest out of infinite energy, all infinite incarnations or emanations, as they put it, nirmana kaya, who interact with those beings in the best of all possible ways. Because by the way, when you achieve that Buddhahood, you become infinite in time as well as space. And that's very complicated because the future is not set. It's not like fatalism. Every being could make different choices and different turn in different moments. And so your commitment is your emanations will be there with every being to help them make the best choices, because they are free beings, because the nature of reality is freedom. And so even in their ignorance, they're free, and you want to help them go left if that's the way to go at a crossroads. And so you're there in the multiple possible futures with all beings. You're instantly there in the moment of your enlightenment, helping them to the maximum effect, all of them, and being aware that they will reach their own Buddhahood inevitably at this or that exact time. And you're going to see to it it's as soon as possible within whatever their limitations are and their circumstances, right? So you have to do that in order not to, oh, wait, I'm out of my camera. You have to do that in order not to break your vow as a bodhisattva, not to abandon them in your enlightenment and Buddhahood and your happiness and leave them out. Your happiness will overwhelm their unhappiness, but it might take some of them time. So you'll stay with them. One of your emanations will stay with them in that time. It's really wonderful. But then of course, but finally, of course, mind this, you may remember it from Gaelic teaching, the only sure thing is the freedom reality of your reality body. All of your descriptions, theories, and evocations of what happens in the inconceivable, magical, miraculous relativity, all of that is only relative. So three-body theory, two-reality theory, or two-truth theory, whatever theory it is just useful in a context in a certain case. It's not the absolute dogma, because the absolute is of non-dual relative and absolute. The absolute of non-dual relative and absolute is inexpressible, inconceivable, and it's too amazing, cannot be captured in binary language. So poetics can help evoke it, but it only gives vectors, you know.
But it's kind of like inspiring, right? It gives this inspiration of what can be achieved, with a life, right? It's very inspiring.
Because that blocks Buddhism from being dogmatic, you see. So anybody who says this is exactly what it is about a Buddhist thing is, in a way, they're reifying, they're absolutizing a particular description. And they really shouldn't do that, in a way.
I really love the way you talk about this. That was listening.
I love Vimalakirti. I'm very fond of my own translation of the Vimalakirti Sutra, but I'm more fond of the original in Sanskrit and the translation in Tibetan and the ones in Chinese, the three in Chinese. And in there's a wonderful moment where Vimalakirti magically brings a huge audience of thousands of people who have been in his TARDIS-like, Doctor Who TARDIS-like house. And he brings them to a grove outside of town in the suburb where Buddha and his thousands of followers are hanging out temporarily. And he brings them in the palm of his hand across the town. And then he puts them down, and then he's there. And then, because they wanted to touch base with Buddha at the end of his long teaching. So then Buddha says to him, oh, okay, Vimalakirti, you guys all came over here to see the Buddha. Now you're here. What do you see?
We're going.
Oh, okay. See you later.
We'll see you later. Bye.
So he says, Vimalakirti says, well, I don't see Buddha when I see a particular body in front of me. And he's talking to Shakyamuni Buddha, the Buddha of that time. He says, I don't see a Buddha when I see a body. I don't see Buddha. And he goes on and on. And he rejects seeing any Buddha in any particular specific thing. In other words, he sort of touches base with the reality body awareness of the Buddha, because Buddha is also him. He knows that from Buddha's point of view, he's also Vimalakirti, he's also everybody else and everything else there, not just the people, also those things. And so he says, I'm not going to pin down Buddha as somebody inside your body, in other words, because he's touching what is Buddha's awareness. And he's not saying Buddha doesn't exist. He just says, I don't see Buddha when I see a specific thing. And it's really, sometimes they will say Buddha doesn't exist because someone is thinking of it as, oh, some guy over there is a Buddha, or some woman is a Buddha, they're a female Buddha. And so that's really far out. Okay. So that's it, So that's it. There's no more than that.
Well, maybe
but the other thing, the key thing is, like in Zen, they say first mountains and mountains are rivers. Then there's no mountains and no rivers. Then finally, when you get enlightened, mountains and mountains and rivers are rivers. And there's some people misinterpret that it's just caving to the ordinary, it's enlightenment. And they're selling it way short. Because the point is, the third place there, yes, mountains and rivers simultaneously would still be non-mountains and non-rivers. And that makes even every mountain and every river completely inconceivable and a complete miracle. And other people, that other people just think that's a mountain and a river, but you see it simultaneously and you don't see it simultaneously. And thereby you can do all kinds of marvelous things. There's a wonderful school in Chinese Buddhism that you may not have bumped into, and it connects to the Flower Ornament Sutra.
Yeah. That's a great sutra, and that's a great Chinese Buddhist school for sure.
It is. Yeah. It's called the Huayan School.
The Huayan School, yeah.
And the Huayan School has a wonderful commentary on that by a guy called Du Shun, and in Tang Dynasty, and he has this beautiful thing. He gets three principles. He says, Zhen Kong, Guan Zhen Kong, see true void. That's the first one. Then he says, Li Shi Wu Ai. Second one is the mutual non-obstruction of ultimate and relative, basically. I mean, Li Shi is a little different, but that's what it means, ultimate and relative. And that's, of course, non-duality, nirvana, samsara, absolute reality and relative reality, because this is just a key point just to have people can take away with it as a slogan. Buddha's discovery of emptiness, by the way, is not anything like discovering nothingness. His discovery of emptiness is the discovery of relativity. That's what it is. Because emptiness means that there's no absolute apart from all relational things. And therefore, all the relational things in their relativity are the absolute simultaneously. And that makes you able to deal with the relative things in this completely free way. But anyway, the third principle, so you have seeing the true void, seeing the mutual non-obstruction of absolute and relative. And the third one is Shi Wu Ai. So seeing the mutual non-obstruction of relative and relative. And what that means is that, like Vimalakirti's version, he teaches in one chapter from the Flower Ornament. He says this is just a drop of the ocean of the Buddha Garland Sutra or Flower Ornament Sutra. But in that he says, to understand the inconceivable liberation, which is another title of the Flower Ornament Sutra, you have to understand taking the planet. He has a different name for it, but it's the planet, and putting it inside a mustard seed without increasing the size of the mustard seed and without harming or diminishing the size of the planet. You have to be able to understand that. Or to take an aeon, that's like Big Bang to Big Crunch, taking an aeon and having someone else experience it in a split second.
It's a relativity of experience question, really. Yeah.
Something like that. Well, yeah. It's even hard to imagine, such a thing. It's unimaginable almost, really, but it's inconceivable. But he then makes this incredible, the Bodhisattva or the Buddha and the inconceivable liberation, they can they can swallow a supernova in the pores of their skin. They can swallow a hurricane. They can swallow a tsunami, just no problem, and really outrageous things that you can't imagine, magical, miraculous things that you can't imagine. But that is a dimension, it seems that otherwise it seems kind of neat, the three bodies, the reality body, bliss body, and emanation body. It's like, okay, that's what it is. But actually it's something more inconceivable than any schema.
This schema is a tool to help you understand it somehow on a relative level or something.
And therefore, and this is my last thing, I think, because I have to follow them. And therefore, don't say we can't fix the planet. Don't say it's impossible to get rid of like Hitler. Don't say, or any would-be Hitler. Don't say, oh, these people are always like that, it'll never change, or there's some sort of thing, there's nothing we can do about this. Don't ever think there's nothing you can do about anything. There's always, miracles are always possible. And they may not seem like it at the time, but they are. So that's my point. You're 51, you have plenty of time. You're going to fix it. You don't want to live in a post-2030 world where there's no more California or no more from Guatemala, Honduras. The media are so bad because there's so much commercials are bought by fossil fuel people. They always say, gee, why are they living in Honduras? Oh, it's the bad government. El Salvador is bad. Well, yes, of course it is the bad government. But they've also been having major drought. There's no water coming off the Pacific to those countries. So except for the occasional torrent that then makes a mudslide, but regular water is not there. And this is good. It's working its way up the Mexican coast. California, why is it burning? It doesn't have proper normal cycle of water. And this goes all the way to Breeze Sea. In the predictions, of course, they say 2080.
Oh, yeah.
But Al Gore has a slide that shows by all the 10,000 scientists that it goes up to 2080, then it's completely uninhabitable, the entire west coast of the US. It's a total desert. But that will be 2045. Everything is so much faster than they thought. Greenland is down by 2035, finished. 5 meters of water, forget Miami. Alligators on the second floor.
So part of what you're saying here is,
but the point is, those are trends that are happening at the current rate of what is happening. But look at when we had the COVID in the first 6 months, there were dolphins in the canals in Venice. Everything changed dramatically right away. And so miracles can happen. And that's really important as far as reality goes. Not only that the reality is comprehensible by a formerly human being who has just expanded to their full humanness, their enlightened humanness, not only, which is miraculous, that's miraculous. Everybody told you since birth, and they told me it was with that kid, that's what I didn't like. Oh, you can't understand. Oh, no. And in the church, they said, the Sunday school, God only understands. You can't understand. You have to believe what you don't believe. Thanks. And then the scientists, oh yeah, you can study everything and analyze it down this and measure everything down to the millionth of an inch, but you'll never understand it. The more you measure, the more you don't know, because you'll never understand. And they misunderstood Socrates' rhetorical strategy of claiming not to know anything to get people to bring out their ideas so he could show what idiots they were and get them to develop a better idea.
So I think what you're saying there is you can't really put an artificial limit on the power of human understanding and ability.
Exactly. And we all have the ability to become enlightened, at which point we understand everything. We're omniscient. Now, of course, you have to understand omniscient when you say, oh, are you a vegetarian? Are you vegan? No, I'm omnivorous, somebody will say. Oh, no, I'm relaxed, I'm omnivorous. They don't mean they already ate everything in the world. I mean, they're ready to eat whatever they turn their appetite toward, okay? So similarly, omniscient means knowing reality, ready to know, and ready to therefore be responsible, and therefore ready to build back better, okay? That's the thing. That's Buddhahood. Joe Biden is getting enlightened now. He made a lot of bad decisions and votes in his former sold out to the whatever, the lame ass Republican light Democrats. But now he's Mr. Enlightened. He's trying to be really ethical. He's going for justice. He's going to undo all the bad stuff he tried to do. And we have to know that the people who will not cooperate with him, Joe Manson has to wake up to the fact they are not seeking bipartisanship from the other side. They are seeking to, they are not seeking to be a loyal opposition. They're seeking to destroy the government. They have said so. And they're seeking to destroy the majority rule and to continue to minority rule and wreck the government. And the government's job is protecting the people from the oligarchs. And they therefore want to destroy that protection because they are the servants of the oligarchs, not of the people. And they've said so. So it's not a mystery. It's obvious. Everyone is enlightened enough to understand that. So we have to be firm about it. Joe Biden and company have to, and George Schumer and everybody, they have to be firm. The government is needed to serve the people and help them and save them from their desperate situation. Right?
It seems like that's part of like a spiritual thing to recognize what's happening on that macro level and try to participate in the most positive way that one can.
That's right. Because the people who oppose the government and who have sold the oligarchs will cast them aside at the drop of a hat. And furthermore, life will just drop the oligarch aside at the drop of a hat. And then they will suffer the consequence of all negative things they did suppressing people. So no one is, the oligarchs are not benefiting from their domination and wrecking of our potentially positive social system where we respect the life force of each individual as being of equal value. We don't pretend, of course, that everyone is totally different too. We respect that. But the point is their essential life force is equal to our life force. And actually, the more we identify with the life force of others, the stronger our own life force becomes. So it's not a hardship for us. It helps us. The more we do something, it's like the runner who's running for the team or who's running for the town or running in the Olympics for the nation or whatever they think is of some larger thing than themselves. They will get a few seconds shaved off their time because they feel a bigger power coming from them. Do it for the others. So the motivation becomes more powerful when you're altruistic and you therefore do it better. So it's not a sacrifice to be less selfish.
That's very well said.
It's what the Dalai Lama calls, and what old Geshe Wangal used to call, it's being a wise selfish. Okay, listen, guys, I enjoyed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thurman. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, of course.
Thank you very much for coming.
Good luck with your podcast. And please send me an archival copy when you finalize it or whatever you do.
Absolutely.
We're going to actually YouTube it and we'll have some visuals as well.
Put it in some place, then bury it in a time capsule. I won't know where it is, but I like to keep it. And if I don't get a copy, people scold me.
No, we'll give it to you for sure.
Okay. So listen, great meeting you both. And I have a dear Indian friend in Chicago and another friend, and they want me to visit there always. And I'm like 2 years late. So I'll look you up when I get there. You sent me your emails, right? Yes.
Yes.
So I'll keep them on a list to Chicago. Good.
Yeah, please do.
That's great, man.
Yeah. If you go up to Devon, we'll get some Indian food. It'll be a night out for us.
Yeah, we'll show you. We'll show you the spots for sure. All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Take care. You as well. Namaste.
Okay.
This concludes our episode with Professor Robert Thurman. We are very grateful to have had him on to be able to ask him some questions and have some dialogue with him. It's such a pleasure to have somebody with so much knowledge share. I hope you enjoyed the episode. For Eric, this is Daniel. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
I want you to get together. I want you to get put your hands together one time. I want you to get together. I want you to get together.